$2.94 per gallon. This past week for the year, we've averaged $3.32. So although obviously volatility in the underlying price of a barrel and a lot of decline, you're still seeing it, as you can tell, at the local gas pump as well. Prices are starting to edge up as well. Ridership, although Beth hit some on that in terms of the financial side of it, in the month of January we saw a total of 8.2 million rides taken, up 2.4% over the previous January. As you recall, we always compare same month of previous year. What this represents is some differences between bus and MAX, but overall the 2.4% increase. 15 consecutive months now of every month being increased over the past previous month. And some of the ridership gains that we saw with the high price of fuel during the summer, although there has been some decrease in the rate of growth, it is still, it appears that many of those people who began riding us found it worked really well and are continuing to be able to ride even with the price of fuel coming down. Overall, Lyft did see in January a slight decrease. We have been seeing a moderation in the number of trips as well as the number of individuals taking trips on the Lyft over the last number of year and a half to 2 year period, and we just obviously watch that one very closely. Although we will start next month on looking at the West ridership. It's obviously in the first weeks it's always hard to be able to get an exact sense of what's happening. We're averaging right now about 1,250 trips per day on West. What we were starting to see, and you can we speculate from this, but much higher ridership numbers in the afternoon, which really tells us that people are out there really wanting to have a chance to see what service is like, rather than they're using it necessarily for commuting. You probably did see in the news that on the West we did discover an electrical problem on one of our DMUs, diesel local units, the third one. Essentially, during manufacturing, a conduit full of electrical wires was not placed high enough on the outside or on the inside wall of the coach itself, and then when drilling was done to be able to put a heater in place, it actually drilled through that conduit, ultimately fraying the wires to the point that it shorted out. We are obviously very troubled by that, but it is under repair now. We hope to have it back up and operating. Because it was a service that we knew we would not be able to provide, obviously the other two trains are still running, but for that one, the service that one train would provide, we ended up having buses right there. It took a little bit longer, but people knew ahead of time, as well as when they were on the platform, that the service was there and what alternatives did exist for them. But we did provide bus service and continue to be able to do so. Next, about West, I want to be able to, I think George Richardson, you said something about, you saw that we were tooting our own horn apparently quite a bit in Metropolitan. The concern obviously has been about the sound. Just so you know, and this is the difference between MAX and a railroad, because the West is a true railroad regulated by the Federal Railroad Administration. There are requirements, and not you need to have all the detail, but essentially the most important one here is that if the train is traveling at under 45 miles per hour, they must blast the horn as they're coming to intersections at least 15 seconds away until they are entering the intersection. The horn blasts are the too long, a short, and a long. As you can imagine, that means that there's quite a bit of land space through which that train is traveling when that horn is being blasted. And that is because this is a railroad. I think the issue is principally one of the fact that when there were occasional freight trains on this, it didn't seem to be quite as noticeable, I think, probably to people living very close by. When there's lots of train traffic, as there is with the commuter rail, that is a different picture. Several things we are doing to address it, and then a specific offer that we have made to the City of Tualatin. First off is that we are testing a different type of horn on the vehicle itself, one that changes the pitch, which is one of the things that makes the sound carry even further. The Federal Railroad Administration is very precise on exactly how you have to test, what the exact decibel levels are, and other things. So there's no kind of movement in that area. But by testing a different type of horn, we think we can, one, get it a little bit more directional, and by also having the frequency a slightly different frequency, the lower pitch makes it a little bit less intrusive. And that we are borrowing, in fact, from Portland Western some horns to be able to see if, in fact, we can accomplish that, if that makes much difference. One of the things you no doubt read about is the idea of a quiet zone, and I think that Board Member Schweitzer indicated last board meeting, but let me just remind you that quiet zones are not easy to come by. They may be applied for, as the Federal Railroad Administration makes clear, only by the entity that controls the streets, the roadways, and secondly, has police power and enforcement power. What they require, if there is a quiet zone, is that all traffic in the vicinity must be able to be blocked so that there is no way to get into the trackway. So if you think about it right now, most of the time if there's a two-lane road, arms come down across the lanes that are active. But, you know, we've all seen cars that kind of work their way around those. Under the quiet zone requirement, it has to be, both sides have to be able to be blocked, and in fact, parallel traffic has to be blocked as well, so there's just no movement. That is very disruptive to very large roadways, some of which are in Tualatin, but it also, as Tiffany pointed out, a very long process, that 2 or 3 years, and at the end of which, even once all installed, the railroad still gets to say at the end of the day, you know, we don't think that's good enough. We're still going to blast our horns. Obviously, they are very concerned about liability, and as Portland Western has indicated, liability or the horn blasts are something they think is a safety measure, and they do not look kindly upon other alternatives. Having said all of that, we obviously want to be able to be of help, and one of the concepts that we think has, by the way, I should make very clear first, on the quiet zone, this is an issue that was discussed with the local jurisdictions throughout the building of WES. In fact, we commissioned a report from a consultant expert in railroad and quiet zones, commissioned back in November of '07, that is over a year and a half ago. Essentially, it's a roadmap so that we could hand to Tualatin how they have to go about making application for a quiet zone if they so chose. So this is an issue that has been, obviously, from our standpoint, important. I think that generally the jurisdictions thought that they would wait and see, and with the belief that that it would become a part of the background noise over time. And that obviously is an issue that needs to be addressed. As I said, we are obviously very concerned. One of the solutions that we think can, in fact, help address, not solve all noise problems, but as with a quiet zone, but help address it, is the ability to be able to install what are called wayside horns. If you think about it right now, the train themselves have the horns on it, and as they approach, they are, in fact, covering up wherever they're traveling, is being affected by that horn sound. An alternative is to be able to have what are called wayside horns, horns that are actually mounted at the intersections. They have to still meet all the same decibel levels. They can be a bit more directional because it's right there at the intersection. At the time, as we were building the project, I think the jurisdictions thought, you know, they might want more to be able to pursue the idea of a quiet zone. They didn't think this may, in fact, solve the problem. But I have offered to the mayor of Tualatin that we would put in about 1/3 of the cost, $250,000, to be able to install that. Asked if he would do the same, and that we would then approach regionally the regional pot of money of stimulus dollars to be able to do that likewise. That's something that can be done this year.